Love lives here.
Quick question here for you. When you think of the word integrity, do you often think of it in terms of a moral code, of being in integrity, of being in some kind of a moral code? Yeah? That we keep our word, that we're honest, that we follow through, that we are in integrity with what we say, what we think, what we do. Is that your basic understanding of integrity, or the way you would use integrity? How about the integrity of a bridge? Well, that's a good one. You hope the bridge has integrity, right? Otherwise, you're going to go falling into the river bottom. Not a good thing, right? So integrity in that sense of the word means soundness, right? That something is sound. Something is steady. It's sturdy. It's solid, right? But the word integrity actually comes from the word integer. And that is causing all kinds of PTSD across faces as I see people going, ooh, math, yuck, right? Don't worry, we won't go to math. But what integer means is it means united. It means whole, undivided. So when we talk about integrity, the root word of integrity means whole, undivided, united, complete. What else do we know as whole? God, us, Spirit, is the wholeness, the allness, the fullness. Yes? Yes. Cool. All right. So if we are talking about wholeness, then, so if integrity equals wholeness, we cannot become whole by abandoning parts of ourselves, by leaving parts of ourselves behind, by leaving parts of ourselves out. What we would call perhaps our shadows, as Carl Jung calls it, right? Integrity asks us to bring every part of ourselves back to the table, back into wholeness, so that not every part of us is going to run our lives, but so that every part of us can be seen, can be healed, and can be integrated. There's that word again, integrated. Integer, integrate, integrity, right? So this is true not just for individuals, but also it's true for nations. And guess what? A country has a shadow too, just like we each have our own shadows. Country has a shadow because it's a collective shadow, and a collective shadow is everything a people refuses to see about itself. It's cruelty, it's racism, it's hunger for domination, it's fear of difference, it's addiction to power, it's willingness to sacrifice someone else's freedom in order to preserve its own comfort. And when the collective shadow is not faced, it does not disappear. No. It organizes, it finds language, it finds symbols, it finds leaders, it finds crowds. Eventually, it marches into the daylight. Yesterday, as our nation celebrated 250 years of its founding ideals of liberty and equality, we also saw images from Washington, D.C. that revealed something much older and much more dangerous, still moving through the American psyche. We saw people marching for authoritarianism, exclusion, domination, and the fantasy that some people are more entitled to this nation than others. And so when we see this image, the temptation might be to say, those people are the problem. But integrity, my beloveds, asks us deeper questions. The deeper questions of, what are they revealing about us? What fears have we refused to face? What resentments have we refused to heal? What myths have we believed about who belongs and who does not? What parts of our national story have we tried to suppress rather than to transform? To acknowledge a shadow is not to excuse it. To understand fear is not to justify hatred. To see the roots of domination is not to surrender to it. It means that we become conscious enough to choose differently. You see, science of mind teaches that consciousness externalizes, yes? What we held in mind becomes form, right? And this is true of us personally, but it's also true of us collectively. As a nation, we cannot own our shadow unless, if we don't own our shadow, we eventually become governed by it. Let me say that again so it's clearer. As a nation, if we don't own our shadow, we become governed by it. So, integrity for a people means telling the truth. It means owning our mistakes. It means repairing what has been broken. And it means refusing to build freedom for some on the backs of suffering for others. The opposite of authoritarianism isn't just democracy. The deeper opposite is rooted in integrated consciousness. Authoritarianism begins with division. This looks like we're the real people. They are the threat. We deserve power. They deserve exclusion. But science of mind doesn't begin with division. Science of mind begins with oneness. There is one life. This life is God. This life is perfect. This life is my life now. One life, one presence, one humanity, one divine reality expressing through all. And when we forget that, division follows. When we remember it, integrity becomes possible. You see, if spirit is whole, perfect, and complete, and spirit is all there is, then what does that mean about you and me? That we too must be whole, perfect, and complete. That we express spirit in our own individuality. Our whole spirit, the whole of spirit, is expressing itself in, through, and as each one of us. So therefore, my beloveds, we were never broken. We've always been whole. We've always been complete. Yes, we may have been wounded. We may have been disappointed. We've been conditioned. We learned to separate ourselves, to hide bits and pieces of ourselves. But we have never, ever, ever lost the wholeness of who we are. We've never lost the integrity of who we are. Ernest Holmes reminds us that what is impressed into the creative medium expands. What impressed into the creative medium grows. Remember, the creative medium, this middle part here of the circle, doesn't care what we put into it. It will manifest. It will grow to the level of our belief. So what beliefs have we been putting into this medium? Have we been putting in, oh, I'm too much? Have we been putting in, oh, I'm not enough? I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't want that. I need to hide in order to protect who I am. You see, putting those thoughts into creative medium then divides us within ourselves. We create this our own separation within us. And one individual divided creates for the individual. But when we have a group that's divided, a group of divided individuals, that we are feeding a larger division. And when we have a country full of divided individuals and divided groups, then we have a larger consciousness. The consciousness of the country also becomes divided. The shadow begins with the individual and grows as more individuals come together, grows into that larger community, into the larger country. So if that's the way this works, then what do we have the opportunity to do, my beloveds? Thank you. Bring our light to the shadow. Thank you, Marianne. We bring our light to the shadow, right? We bring our light to the shadow. So how do we bring our light to the shadow? We recognize first, we become aware that we are living from the shadow. We become aware of the shadows that are within us. And so we stop pretending. We stop hiding. We stop avoiding. Because it's really exhausting, isn't it? It's really exhausting to not be your whole self, to try and be something that you think people expect of you, or that you expect of yourself. Think of how much work it takes to appear to be a good person versus how little work it takes to actually be a good person. Be your whole self. Be the wholeness and the perfection that you are. And when we operate from that place, that ground of our own being, the ground of our integrity, the ground of our wholeness, because integrity is our ground, when we operate from that place, then we have the freedom to do, to be, to have. Or actually, the freedom to be, to do, to have. Being always comes first. And not only do we have the freedom to be, do, and have, we have the freedom from. And freedom from usually precedes the freedom to be, do, and have. So when we step into our wholeness, we have the freedom from suppression, suppressing ourselves, which then frees up the energy to express ourselves, to be creative, to bring joy, to share love. When we give up the hatred, when we give up the division, when we move from freedom from division, when we stand in our wholeness, we move from freedom of division to freedom that we find in unity, in togetherness, in oneness with one another. And shining our light, Marianne, also means that we get to own our stuff. We get to own our stuff, or any other S word you might want to insert there, right? We get to own our stuff, meaning that we get to take responsibility for our lives, because integrity means becoming responsible or taking responsibility, owning our stuff, meaning that I get to own my choices, my words, my actions. I get to own the impact. I get to own my own healing. I get to own my own shadows. It is not about blaming, it's about empowering. Because when we don't own our own stuff, then guess what? Somebody else owns our freedom. I heard a moan. If we don't own our own stuff, and we are always assigning blame to somebody else, that my life is somebody else's fault, what's happening is somebody else's fault. If I don't own that, if you don't own that, if we don't own our piece of it, if we don't own our contribution of it, if we don't own our responsibility, then what we're doing is we're giving somebody else our freedom. Somebody else owns our freedom. Do you want somebody else owning your freedom? No. So the path to freedom then lies in our wholeness, lies in our integrity. And sometimes shining our light and owning our stuff is not easy, right? Damien, that means we have to have a hard conversation, right? Or we have to hold a boundary. But in doing so, that short-term discomfort in that moment provides us with freedom. Because if we don't, we enter into long-term suffering. We see that person, oh, gosh, I have to talk to them today. I don't want to. Oh, I have to work with them today. Really? Why did my boss schedule them to work the same shift I'm working? Right? Why do I have to be in class with that person? And what does that do? What does that do to our insides? We're experiencing this long-term suffering. We're experiencing long-term pain because we won't rip the Band-Aid off and just go have a conversation. Because we think the conversation is hard, because the conversation makes us uncomfortable. But that discomfort only lasts for the length of that moment versus the ongoing discomfort and the ongoing suffering of staying silent. So a friend of mine has this saying that he leans into. When things get heated, stay seated. Meaning that when things get uncomfortable, lean into it, stay with it, and move through it with intention and consciousness rather than turning tail and running away. Lean into it. So when things get heated, stay seated. Lean in. Appreciate. Learn. Bring your curiosity. Own your side of stuff. Forgive others, forgive yourself. Ask for forgiveness. Ask for clarity. Lean into the connection with humanity. Lean into your connection with the other beloved. Rather than, bye, Felicia. Now, it might be at some point that you might need to cut ties. That's okay. But initially, look and see if there's a conversation. Look and see if there are reparations that are wanting to happen here. Look and see what else might be possible. First and foremost. And also look within and find what is keeping you, what is the shadow belief, what is that thing that is that you are so resistant to? Why is that resistance up, and what is it there to teach you? What is it there to reveal to you? So in a moment, I'm going to invite you to move to tables. And I want you to be thinking about this integrity piece, this wholeness piece. Where are you in your life experiencing integrity? Where are you experiencing your wholeness? Where are you being in integrity? And then where are you being challenged by that? Where are you having difficulty being in integrity and or falling out of alignment? And then how do you get yourself back into alignment? So where do you feel most in integrity right now? What pulls you out of your alignment? And what simple action would bring you back into alignment today? So again, if we're thinking about integrity, we're thinking about wholeness, oneness, completeness. So your homework for this week, your spiritual practice for this week, if you read my email, then you saw that I gave you a spiritual practice in there from freedom from and freedom to. And now I invite you to look at that in a slightly different way. Create two columns on a piece of paper. And on the left, write, I choose freedom from. And on the right, write down, so that I have the freedom to. So for example, I have the freedom from perfectionism so that I have the freedom to create. I have the freedom from people-pleasing, so I have the freedom to be authentic. I have the freedom from shame, so I have the freedom to love. I have the freedom from resentment, so I have the freedom to live fully. So as you create those pairs, choose one pair and practice it intentionally this week. Okay? And remember, this is all coming to you in your email tomorrow morning when we send out the tools for thriving in great detail. So, whatever we refuse, my beloveds, whatever we refuse to integrate within ourselves, eventually becomes something that we must confront outside of ourselves. And a nation cannot own its shadow. A nation that cannot own its shadow eventually becomes governed by it. America's shadow includes our history of slavery, genocide, racism, exclusion, economic exploitation, and the recurring temptation to believe that freedom belongs to some more than others. The health of a democracy depends on the integrity of the people who create it. If citizens are divided within themselves, their institutions eventually become divided. If citizens refuse to face truth, their nation eventually refuses to face truth. If citizens surrender their integrity, democracy eventually follows. If we refuse to face the history honestly, it doesn't just stay in the past. It finds new language, new symbols, new movements, new expressions. The shadow always returns until it is brought into the light. Recognizing the shadow is not about condemning other people. It is about becoming curious. To acknowledge fear is not to justify it. To recognize hatred is not to excuse it. To name authoritarian impulses is not to demonize those who hold them. It is to say, this too is part of our collective consciousness. And if we are going to heal, we must stop pretending that it's not there. Integrity means whole, not just honest, whole and undivided. A divided person creates divided relationships. A divided people create a divided nation. Healing always begins by becoming whole. Integrity isn't only the work of an individual, it's the work of a people. A nation grounded in integrity has the courage to tell the truth about its history, own its mistakes, repair what it has broken, and choose a future that includes everyone. This is what healing looks like for a person, a community, and for a country. So perhaps, beloveds, the most patriotic thing we can do this Independence Day weekend isn't wave a flag. Perhaps it's tell ourselves the truth. Because every movement towards justice, every expansion of democracy, every act of liberation has always begun with someone willing to tell the truth. First about themselves, then their community, and then their nation. The nation you and I long for will never be built by people who are waiting for someone else to become more conscious, to become more awake, to become more enlightened. It will be built by people willing to do their own work, our own work. Integrity isn't simply how democracy survives. It's how humanity evolves. And so it is. And let us come together in consciousness here and now, recognizing that there is just this one power, this one presence, this one life, this one love, this one infinite eternal that moves through and as all life and all creation, because it is the source of life. It is the source of creation. And beyond source, it is also the substance. Therefore, I know that the who of who I am is a divine expression of this oneness, this life, this love, this wholeness, this perfection. And knowing that this is true of me, I know that this is true of everyone gathered here this day. It is true of all life everywhere. That each one of us is an expression of the one life, an expression of wholeness, an expression of love, of light, of peace, of freedom. And so I speak my word here and now for this beloved community, Riverside Center for Spiritual Living. Know that we are whole. Know that we live in integrity, in our wholeness. And it is from this place of wholeness that we interact with one another and with the world. It is from this place of internal wholeness, this internal integrity, that our bodies move in perfect alignment, that they function in perfect health and wholeness, that the body of our affairs, that the body of our finances, the body of our life itself is one integral part and parcel of the whole. For we live in a holographic universe. That which is in one place must be in every place. So the wholeness that we recognize in ourselves must be the wholeness that is in and throughout all of life, all of creation, even those who appear to be separate from us. For we know that they are not. We know that they are siblings, sisters, and brothers. They are another expression of love, of life, of peace, of joy, of harmony. And so I call forth this harmony from within those of us who have forgotten. I call upon all of us to remember the wholeness that we are, the love that we are, and allow it to go forth, to move forward, to make the crooked places straight, to unite us in unity and in our humanity and in our divinity. And for this I do give thanks. I give thanks for our integrity. I give thanks for our wholeness. I give thanks for our freedom in it. And so I release this word into law, knowing it is done, knowing it is so, and so it is. So let us say our affirmation together. So I invite you to stand and join in. Here we are. I stand on the solid ground of truth with a capital T. Here we go. I stand on the solid ground of truth. Now let me really hear you like embody that. Go for it. I stand on the solid ground of truth. Yes. Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Is this thing called love.
This thing called love.
Love is in my mind.
Love is in my mind.
Love is in my body.
Love is in my body.
Love is in everything I do.
Love is everything I do.
I am it.
I am it.
I share it.
I share it.
I receive it.
I receive it.
And I move love forward.
And I move love forward.
Because
Love.
love lives here.